Just trying to scoot in there alone. It pinballs to the crease.
Let's get it.
Oh my God! Here we go.
You're listening to the Country Bullies Podcast with your hosts, Derek.
How you gonna get it, Bobby?
John. Matt Casey.
Unnecessary, but totally necessary.
And Cody.
What's not to love?
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Pod Street Bullies. My name is Derek.
Howdy. I'm John. What's
That's
going on,
him.
everybody?
All right. And Matt Casey, what's up, man?
How's it going, guys?
Thanks for
I don't know how I
filling off
follow
the
that.
entire episode there, John. Starting off on a great foot. You'll also notice Hoagie's not with us tonight. John's happy.
Hoagie-less
Got it.
pod.
Yeah. Enjoy your extra 20 minutes of speaking time there, pal.
Well, it's really
Like
cool.
you-
The humor factor is going to drop, at least for the three of us. We're going to be like, oh, we don't have anyone to bash on. But in all seriousness, hope everything's good.
Love you, Hoagie.
Yeah, no, I mean, we've got some news in terms of contracts, what's going on. We're going to continue our Thrive or Die segment as well with 5 new names to go through. The first contract we're going to get into, though, real quick. Hayden Hodgson, who'd have thunk it? Back with the Flyers.
Who
1
is
year,
Hayden
2
Hodgson?
years. Who? Hayden Hodgson? It sticks with the alliteration, so, you know,
Sure.
Chuck Fletcher special here. 2 years, $800K per year. 2-way contract for the first year, 1-way contract for the second. General thoughts.
He'd make a great country singer.
Yeah, him and Cooper Merity could.
I'm Hayden Hodgson. and I'm
Cooper
here to
Merity,
sing
he's
you
a
melody.
country singer.
Is he?
I was thinking
Those two
more
could
of
do
like
a
a
duet.
male stripper, be like, ladies, welcome Hayden Hodgson. All right, so what's Hayden Hodgson done? Like, what has he done for us?
I don't know. I mean,
Why
good
do I care?
story.
What do I care about this signing?
No, you don't.
Came up from the ECHL. You know, played in the AHL, earned his way up to the NHL, but he earned his way up to the
Okay,
Flyers.
he was a good story. He was a good story.
Right. Scored a goal, right?
Yeah, scored a goal.
Right.
And then who cares after that?
Way to go, pal. You know,
Okay.
good for him. Happy for him,
Next.
but
And
yeah,
then-
whatever. And then we get to Linus Hogberg. Another
Next.
1-year deal, $750K, 2 ways. And next, Hodgson.
I mean, real quick.
Hogberg, who gives a shit?
Hogberg, Linus Hodgson, Hayden Hogberg.
Hodgson Hotberg.
Hip hop anonymous.
I keep on saying this. Once these guys make it up, I'll learn their names. If they make it up, I'll learn
Well,
their names.
Hogberg played a game or two, I think. If I don't,
He did.
and I don't. He looked the most lost of like the young defensemen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not very appealing.
He made a Tard look like an all-star.
Right.
He did, and that's pretty tough to
Ronald
attain.
Hard.
So we get to the big fish out of the 3 here. Wade Allison finally inked a contract. Great. Everyone here is happy. You can see Matt Casey clapping. 2-year deal, $785K per year. First year, it's a 2-way deal. Second year, it is a 1-way deal. So initial analysis on this, John, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I'm glad they got the deal done. I think we've said this numerous times. Wade Allison can stay healthy. He could be a really useful piece in this roster. He could even be somebody who might flirt with the second line, especially when we're dealing with the depth problems that we are. Again, for me, the health is the issue. He has not been able to stay healthy since forever. I'm not really convinced it's going to change, but what's 785,000, right? Like,
It's only money.
Drop in the bucket.
ain't no thing.
Yeah, drop in a bucket that's already overfilling. What do you think, Matt Casey?
Yeah, I'm glad they got it done. To echo John's thoughts, and I think everyone who has ever watched a hockey game with him in it, it's like he's an energy guy. He plays a hell of a kind of style, but it's like I don't want to call it reckless, but it is
In a way, it is.
it's forceful. I don't know.
Erratic.
It's intense, and that's like what makes him stick out. And you think back to 2 years ago when he popped up, he was a jolt of energy. Like he really, I was like, oh, okay. Like, we knew we weren't going anywhere, but he was really a bright light. And then the dark cloud that, he's like, who's Thig Pen, from Peanuts. He has like the cloud of dust like rolling around him, where you're just petrified the guy's gonna get hurt. And it was the rookie game last year he got hurt. He never really made it back during the regular season last year, maybe for a couple games. But at his best, I do think he is a second liner. Like I think he's decent size. He's got a pretty nasty shot. He forechecks like an absolute banshee. And so I'm glad we got it done. I don't think we're risking too much with this deal. I think it's a good one. I think it's fair given his injury history, but would love to see him play his way into a long-term one in a year or so.
Sure. I think it's also interesting. You look at just the deals combined here. He's making $15K less than Hayden Hodgson. Like nickels and dimes, sure. But like, does that, and I'll go to you, Casey, first, but like, does that give you a glimpse into maybe what the Flyers organization thinks about Wade Allison?
I mean, again, I wouldn't dig too deep into it. I don't know. I feel like Allison has so much upside, but we've seen what the downside is. And I think that's probably why there's a bit of discrepancy there. I mean, at the end of the day, who cares? I mean, these guys want to play in the NHL. 15K is 15K. I would kill for 15K. But
for real,
like for real, I'd kill. But I think
you heard it here first, everybody. We'll use a special password. We can.
It's this generation's Klondike bar.
I feel like, I don't know. I don't have a strong opinion on it, but I'm glad that Wade signed, and I'm not digging too deep into that one.
Sure. What about you, John?
I agree. I mean, who knows what the reason could be for. I don't think that really when it came to negotiations, Wade Allison had a leg to stand on because he has to be healthy. Here it is again. But I don't know. There could be a million reasons. I'm pretty sure that neither Hayden Hodgson
Jesus.
or Wade Allison are content with, the money that they're making. I think they're probably hoping that they can earn something else. And that's what both of these contracts are.
Yeah.
And
I mean, everybody else.
What, he's 25. Is that right?
Yeah.
Like he's if he plays in the rookie, he's going to lose it.
I don't think there's a big fuss to make about 15K here. I think too, given the injury history, you don't have that with Hodgson, but again, much smaller sample size in terms of play. Not going to look too far into that. I'm just happy that he signed. I'm happy that the Flyers have him. There were comparisons made in terms of stylistically, him looking like a Scott Hartnell. And I think that this team could really use that. So barring anything catastrophic, exactly. We're talking on ice. We're talking off ice too. Like that just persona, that this team could benefit greatly from it. But I'm happy. I'm hoping he can stay healthy, and we'll see.
Yeah, I think the difference is, not to bash Hartnell's shot, but I think Allison has like a pretty legit shot that I don't think I really ever saw that consistently from Hartnell. So, and I'm dying to see it if all things fall into place. I love the idea of the Fire and Frost line with Tippett, Allison, and Frost anchoring that down and making some magic there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that'd be a fun one. I'd like to see it. But, moving forward here, nothing really else to add to this contract discussion. We're going to get back into our Thrive or Die series here. Thrive or Die series is going to be covering 5 new players here this week, and those players are Fairbairn, Sanheim, Carter Hart, Scott Lawton, and Nick DeLaurier. We're going to get into Joel Fairbairn here first. Probably one of the biggest names aside from maybe Carter Hart on this list.
Saying
seems to be a pretty solid piece of the core for this team moving forward, given the skill set, given the contract as well. Under Tortorella, though, John, is he going to thrive or is he going to die?
Well, Obviously you have to think about the injury. And I'm really curious to see how much time he ends up missing now that we've hired this new guy who's like handling sports science and all that psycho stuff.
He's like in Crocodile Dundee. You guys ever see that movie? Like when he goes to the bowl and he's like that's what this guy sounds like. He's like a medic. He's a psychologist. He can do some yoga in there.
But I'm curious if he takes the approach where it's like we're not going to rush this guy back in because we see what happens with the Flyers players when that happens. But so when you consider the injury, I do think that Fairby is going to be a bit behind the 8 ball as far as getting used to the system and how Tortorella system works. So I do think that there will be some pretty big bumps in the road, but I do think that long term he thrives.
Mm-hmm. Good one. Matt Casey.
Yeah, he's too good, and I think he's shown too much promise to die. But I'm with John that missing training camp and the first part of the season under a new coaching regime,
not great.
There's no way to sugarcoat that. That's not going to be good.
Not good.
And the other thing, it's Fairby arguably is the only player who thrived under the other coaches. So that has me freaked out a little bit, but I give him the benefit of the doubt. I think he plays the right way. I think he's shown a lot of talent. I think he has the right attitude, and I think people gave him crap last year when he was bashing his stick in the tunnel after a bad shift. I think that's great. It shows that you care. You have a pulse. That's much more than we could say for a majority of the team last 2 years.
Sure.
So I think, again, not to steal John's point, but it's going to take a couple months. But I think, after Christmas, I think, once he's in the flow, I think he starts thriving again.
I think a lot to your initial point there, mentioning how he's done well under multiple different coaches. I could almost spin that into a good thing, where he's versatile, he can learn. He easily adaptable to different styles, different systems, things like that. So I have no reason to believe he can't play well under him. I'm not going to say thrive because I'm in the same boat as you guys. It will take some time. I mean, you're going to miss a lot of the training camp. You're going to miss all the training camp. You're still going to be somewhat of a part of it, but you're not going to be on the ice. So that already is detrimental. But I think that give the guy some time to really acclimate himself to this system when he's on the ice. And I think he'll play well. I think he'll be the guy that we want him to be moving forward, the guy we expected him to be moving forward in terms of where we drafted him, the expectations that are on him, and so on and so forth.
He's defensively responsible. He's got offensive upside for sure.
Right.
I just, I'm still just wondering, right now, do we all legitimately have him slotted in on the top line if healthy? Is that where you see him most likely?
I mean, considering what the current makake of this team is, yeah.
Sure.
Right.
I don't think
is he a first line player in general? Probably not.
No.
Yeah.
I do think that there's serious limits to his offensive production. I don't think he's ever going to get past that 25 goal mark, which isn't a bad thing.
Right.
But I kind of hope that there won't be too much of a focus on the defensive aspects where then once he gets healthy, it holds him back from even producing that. And there's no signs that say that it will. I just, those are one of the things that I worry about. He's already, I think, capped out at that 25 goal range where I hope that we can at least get that out of him because we desperately need people who can score goals.
Absolutely.
I heard the comp at some point that somebody was comping him to Richards. And I never really thought about that. But do you guys think that that's a fair one?
I don't know. I think it's. I don't want to necessarily
minus
say fair.
The addiction issues. Minus the addiction.
Sure.
That we know of yet. He is going to get off the major surgery, so it could always.
I think it's an interesting comparison because there's definitely the snarl. I mean, he's not afraid. He's not going to back down.
Richard's light.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be the offensive,
the shift kind of guy.
I don't think he can take over while he's on the ice like Mike Richards used to be able to do.
Mm-hmm.
He's 100% a contributor and can make things happen, but he's not I'm taking over. This is my puck now. You're not taking it from me, and I'm doing whatever I can to keep it. You know what I mean?
I don't know. I think the comparison may have been lazy just because it's like stature, almost like size and
Sure.
playing
Yeah.
style to an extent. But I also wonder if he's one of these guys where, we talked about with Kevin Hayes too, where Giroux's gone. He's been the bread and butter in there. Can Farabee finally say it? What is he, 24? Like, he's still like a pretty young dude. Like,
Right.
can he all of a sudden start stepping up and filling those shoes and getting those, final 90-second, plays and holding the puck and, making chips and things like that. So just a thought.
That's why the injury is just such an inopportune time, because he is somebody where, he really could have come out of the gates like really hot under this system with this new coach, and we could have seen a great year. I don't know, depending on when we see him, my expectations for this season are pretty low. But to me, he's more of like long term, he's more of a complementary piece than one of your cornerstone pieces.
Right.
Sure.
If you're building like a legit winner.
Yeah. No, I'm with Casey. I think it's a bit of a lazy comparison, but I could see it stature-wise for sure. Just maybe not stylistically speaking. All right. Well, moving down the list here, we get to the defenseman, Travis Sanheim, moving forward with John Tortorella as the head coach. Casey, we'll start with you. Is Travis Sanheim a guy that's going to thrive under John Tortorella or not?
I'm going dies. I'm saying he doesn't adjust well enough to this system to make it happen. Part of it is his situation, I guess, coming into a free agency year. He's going to try to do what best ups his value, or he could do. I'm not going to say he will. He could do that. He could go down that route. How does he increase his value to the maximum in the marketplace? And if it's not Philly, it's not Philly. He doesn't care. And so I think that's something to be concerned about. On the flip side, Tortorella is such a freaking psycho that he might just be like, "Oh, this guy isn't playing my system. He's on the bench. I don't care. I don't care if he's your number one trade chip at the deadline." So of all the defensemen in here, I think he's the one that I'm most concerned about. And, I have no legit reason other than just a gut feeling that one of these guys isn't going to thrive under here. And I think it's going to be Sanheim.
That's fair. What do you think about that, John?
I went back and forth with this one for a while. But I'm with Casey. I think he dies too. The thing that kind of held me back from going to death right away was I would love to think that he's going to build off of next year and kind of, go take it to the next level, kind of be the better defenseman than last year, and arguably was our best defenseman last year, which isn't saying much. Right. But you also have to wonder, was he standing out because of the crap show, and he kind of was free to play his own game where, with what you're saying, Casey, he's going to need to play the Tortorella style. And I'm not convinced he can do it. I just need him to play well enough to have his trade value at an area where we get a late first round pick. That's all.
Yeah. I think that you pair that with just the pressure in, not knowing what's happening in terms of, am I going to be staying here next year? Am I going to be traded away at the deadline? He could be our best defenseman up at the deadline. And there's going to be an offer likely that's going to just be too good to pass up because there's going to be teams out there that want him for their Stanley Cup push. So there is going to be an amount of pressure on him that I don't think he's going to be able to respond to. I think pair that with Tortorella and his style of coaching and how demanding he can be of players. I'm not going to sit here and say he entirely folds and just lays a complete deuce this year, but I just think it's going to be a bit too much. So while I'm not going to say completely dies, obviously, I just don't think that he's going to do well under a guy like Tortorella.
I also wonder if the pairing is going to work well. Like Ristolainen is another one for me where I'm not 100% sure. Like I wonder if that pairing just doesn't stick under the Tortorella regime. I don't know what you do with it, but like those are the two guys who are a little iffy for me on whether or not they thrive in this system. And it's not great to have them both on the same pair.
Yeah,
it's a fair point. I mean, I still love the idea of York and Ristolainen playing together. I just think it's such a funny contradiction in stature and physical stature and playing styles and stuff. But I don't like Sanheim's been good, but has he? All right, let me put it to you this way. Do you put the odds better that he is here a year from now or not here a year from now?
I don't think he's here a year from now.
Yeah, I'm willing to. I would put some serious money on it. I don't think he's here.
I don't think he is either. So I think he's just going to be a casualty of, the team's mediocrity. And if we can get, as you said, John, a low first rounder, and I'm assuming you're talking next year's draft, the 23 draft, like,
Yep.
Hell yeah. Like, throw JVR in there as a sweetener. Go for it.
You went saying I'm sure, but he comes as a package deal.
Right.
Now,
so Derek, what was your? Are you a die on that one?
I'm a die on that one.
Oh man, wow, that's
Unanimous.
the first time we've all. Wow,
Yeah,
we're Stogie when we need him.
Such a dramatic. So there's no middle road, like 6
he's
months
not going to
coma
thrive, but he's
or
not going to
whatever,
die.
Like
Right? No, we
Nope.
have to make a decision. Unlike Chuck Fletcher on a direction of the team, we have to actually make a decision here.
Yeah, we're not about this wishy-washy BS here.
yeah.
All right, moving on to another essential part, if you want to say the defense here. Goaltender, Carter Hart. Carter Hart is supposed to be our future, but hasn't been playing like it lately. Blame the defense, blame him. I don't know. But moving forward with John Tortorella at the helm, given the goalies that he has coached in the past, John, how do you think Carter Hart's going to fare under Tortorella?
Better bleep and thrive. I mean, like,
Otherwise, what are we doing here? What are we doing here?
but like in all seriousness, you look at the Tortorella teams of the past, like they're known for low goals against average. They're known for low shot totals against. I'm starting to echo when I don't like it one bit. But so this is getting annoying. Anyway, yeah, I don't know how he doesn't thrive. This system is going to be built for the goalie, right? The team defense is what this guy has not had pretty much his whole career in Philadelphia. Minus maybe a hiccup for a little while.
The 1920 season was
okay
when people actually believed in AV. That's when it was
right.
It was pretty good.
But I just think that, like, when you're talking about a defensively responsible, we're going to limit the amount of shots on the goaltender. Like, if your goalie can't thrive here, then everybody needs to stop the Hart high horse.
Sure. What do you think, Matt Casey?
I think he thrives as well. The timeline on thriving, I don't know. I like to think that can't get much worse, right? In the last 2 years.
Just as soon as you say that.
2 years ago, I think Hart self-imploded. The defense wasn't doing him much favors, that's for sure, but he was trying to overcorrect and he self-imploded. This past year, I think he stabilized. He still didn't have a great team in front of him, obviously, but I think he stabilized enough to say, okay, he is still, what, a 20, how old is he, 22, 23? Something like that?
He's going to be 24. I think
so, yeah.
This is finally like the year that most people start becoming.
And so
immature.
he has more NHL experience than 95% of 24-year-old goalies are ever going to have. Can he put it all into place? And I think, to John's point, Tortorella is notorious for coming in, even in year one, where a lot of his teams haven't even made the playoffs, and we're certainly not trending that way. You knock the goals against down, and then you start building from that. And if this team is going to have one thing from an identity standpoint, I sure as hell hope it's going to be we start from the back out and we have Hart. We are defensive first. We are going to limit the shots. Let's give ourselves a chance to win because all it takes is one shot for that to happen. Easier said than done. I get it. You need goals, all that sort of stuff. But I think that in this system, Hart is going to be given every single chance to get the benefit of the doubt, to use his talents to win some games and really thrive under the system. So I go thrive. Timeline TBD.
You bring up a good point too in terms of shoring up that back end first, because Tortorella is a guy known for generating chances off of transition. So if you can solidify that back end and you can have guys that are harder to play against in their own end, it's going to open up opportunities at the front of the lineup with the forwards. So, getting shots, getting chances off of that transition has to start with the defense. So bringing a guy like Braun back, pairing him with York, I think that's a successful move that can help York. I think DeLaurier, I think Sanheim, that pairing last year arguably was our best pairing. So right then and there, okay. Let's be honest.
The only one that's stuck.
It is, yeah. Not saying it says much, but it's something. And then Pro Robin D'Angelo, up top. So I think if you can, like Casey said, cut down on the amount of shots Carter Hart sees, cut down on the amount of goals you're giving up and chances for that matter, that's where it starts. And I think Hart can really have a good rebound year. Now, again, the speed at which he decides to thrive, I don't know. But I think that Tortorella has a fantastic track record with goalies. I have no reason to believe he can't somewhat right this ship with Carter Hart.
I almost wonder if, the timeline for him is solely dependent on how quickly the rest of this team kind of adopts this Tortorella system successfully. Until they can kind of solidify the play in front of him, what makes you think it could be any different than what it's been? You know what I mean? So if they can get that going early, I don't see a reason why he couldn't, thrive right away.
Yeah. It's interesting. I look at when a new coaching regime comes in, a lot of times what they have to do is break down the old team to build them back up into something that's the last 2 years, this team's been broken down. It's
can't break them down anymore.
It's a Ukrainian village at this point. It is absolutely pummeled. And right now Tortorella is walking in and just okay, none of these guys are giving me attitude. Except for JVR and Sanheim, who are on contract years. All right, let's build this thing back up. And so I don't think nobody in their right mind can come back and be like, well, last year we did it this way. It's shut the F up, man. We could have lost to an AHL team last year. And so I think that, to your point, John, buying into the system, I hope that that's the easiest part of this is the team's we're here. Pied Piper Torts, let's go. We're following.
That year that the Flyers lost that preseason game to, was it Lausanne? How bad do you think last year's team would have lost to them?
Wait, was that the?
I think it was 1920 or something like that. They started.
Game?
Yeah. It was right before the Chicago game. They played them a couple days before, and they lost an exhibition against Lausanne. And I'm like,
we should have known.
We should have. Writing was on the wall right there. Anyways,
but we're still holding on to that season for dear life as our one
good. Baby. Is anybody else? I'm starting to clench my fists when you hear podcasts and it's the people who really connected with this team keep going back to 1920. When they talk about connecting and stuff, I'm like, that it might as well literally be 1920.
It was 3 years ago.
That's how
3 seasons ago.
It's far away. How far away it is in my mind. I don't care what any of them did at that point.
This team is a far cry from what that team was in terms of players, in terms of coaches, in terms of everything. It is.
I was thinking about this though. Hold on. So I was thinking about this. What was the defense in 1920? You had Niskanen.
The Flyers didn't exist in 1920.
Or
Just ignore him. He's talking about
know
like
what I'm
a
talking- 18 was it 18,
1920.
They
yeah,
started in
basically.
1960.
So we had Provorov and Niskanen. We had Sanheim, Myers, Braun, and Gostisbehere.
Yeah.
So even without
Yes.
Ellis, I'm gonna say our defense is better this year than it.
Oh, I
was
agree
back
100%.
then.
At least on paper.
Yeah.
Holistically, I
Always.
say that. Like,
Yeah.
so I think there's something there. I'm grasping at straws, but there's something.
There's hope. There's hope.
Yeah.
That
I'm on
little
the
bit of
Risto
hope
train.
reels you
Risto
right
for
back
captain.
in and then just disappoints you. All right. So Carter Hart, I think it's a unanimous thrive here. It sounds like we get to Hoagie's choice as captain of the Flyers this coming up season and Scott Lawton. I feel like this is another unanimous one here. I could be wrong though. I think John's making a face right now.
Well, I'm making a face at Casey doing this.
Oh, well, let's go to Matt Casey first.
I'm
then.
debating back and forth. I got the devil and the angel on my shoulder here.
We'll make a decision.
I'm going Thrive, but I'm going to tell you why I was debating back and forth.
All right.
Is because Lawton is the Swiss Army knife, and everyone likes to use that comparison. But like, is him not having a firm place in the lineup going to be his downfall? So I think he's going to start the season in the top 6, despite all of the best efforts to make him a bottom 6. I think he's going to start up there and then get moved down. I still think he'll play well and he'll thrive, but I just wonder. It's like at some point, he's. I think he needs some stability in his game as well. And I'm not saying die by any means, but that's my only concern there. But ultimately, he's defensively responsible. He can score if he needs to. He can play up and down the lineup. You don't want to play it on your first line, but he can if you need to. I do think he thrives, but that was where my concern was coming from.
So is this a problem similar to what we had with Oscar Lindblom? Because Lindblom's biggest problem was where does he fit? Is he a second pairing or a second line guy?
Lawton could hypothetically fit in multiple roles. I feel like Lindblom, it was more like he needed to be in a place where he just, because of the depth chart, couldn't fit there.
Right.
Sure.
I felt Lindblom was always a middle 6 guy.
Yeah.
He did well when he was on the top line early in his career, but then he plummeted on the fourth line, understandably so. But like Lawton, I feel like if Lawton is our second line wing, I'm like, man, but it could be worse. If he's our third line center, okay, that's not bad. If he's our fourth line wing or fourth line center, like damn,
we're doing it right.
That's in depth. So I think the further down Lawton slides, the better our team is doing, which is crappy to say.
Sure. What do you think, John?
I think he thrives. I agree with Casey. I think long term he needs to find some sort of stability and kind of understanding of where his role is going to be on this team. But there's just so much about kind of who Scott Lawton is as a player, the attitude, the aggressiveness that he brings there. It's hard to argue against him thriving with a coach like Tortorella.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's the type of player I think that could respond to just about any type of coaching. Again, that Swiss Army knife mentality, not just his play and where he can play, but that mentality that he has. Mm-hmm. I think, ideally I'd like him on the third line wing. Mm-hmm. But depending on how deep this team is, we do. We have no shortage of third liners and fourth liners for that matter. It's, again, I think it's just as simple as saying he's going to thrive. He'll be all right.
Also, if there ever was a if there ever was a player that would zip tie dead armadillos to Tortorella's car when he's in the office, it would definitely be Lawton.
Dead armadillos.
Where the hell does this come from?
All up here, baby.
John's been at work for one day, and he's like, all work and no play. Make John a dull boy.
It's just thinking about all the things Lawton could do to Tortorella's car while I was in one of my meetings.
He's just making sketches of Torts' car with like armadillos dangling like they're wedding bells and
Like
shit.
American Psycho style, the sketches get weirder and weirder.
So can I tell you where I got that from?
Do we want to know?
Where I was born, it was a small farm town with a lot of rednecks, and I ran cross
You want to do
country.
a state in a town here, or are we just
Florida, New
guessing
York. Florida, New York.
here? No way. There's a Florida, New York, huh?
Yeah, in
Ooh,
Orange County, New York.
All right,
Interesting.
there you go.
I graduated with like 60 kids. So I ran cross country, not because I was good at running, but because I needed something to do and I couldn't play soccer to save my life. But there was a kid on the team. His name was Jay Wood, and he was backwoods, and he killed a bunch of opossums and zip tied them to our coach's blue car. I'm not even kidding.
Dude, I love. Hold on.
He had to cut him off with scissors.
What the?
All right, so no joke. I was grilling the other night, not to get too far off topic. And I see this thing looking at me, and it's a freaking possum, man. Those are giant rats. I was scared to death. So what I was like, okay, like back up slowly. I took a tomatoes. We have a big garden. I have like a lot of fresh tomatoes just like lying around, and I fired it as hard as I could against the fence, thinking it would spook and run. Thing like looks at me, like meanders over the tomato and starts eating the tomato, and I was like, oh.
What do you think was gonna happen?
Like, damn it, now he's gonna come back.
Right.
I thought the noise would just make him like scurry
It's like, hey,
away. You know?
Got
Now
any
you're
peppers? I'll make some salsa.
You're the jackass neighbor feed the opossums now.
Way to go.
It's like somebody feeds the stray cats, but there's crazy old Casey feed the opossum.
Crazy
Uh-oh.
Casey.
Here, ladies, here's Hayden Hodgson and Terry Wood, or whatever your buddy's name was.
Jay Wood.
Jay-
Just not my buddy.
Oh boy. All right. Well,
Anyway,
Shout out
what are we
Jay
talking
Wood.
about?
let's get to the last name on the list here. Nick DeLaurier, the new signing here. Chuck Fletcher's crown jewel of free agency. Nick DeLaurier plays a specific style of hockey that I think is quite conducive to what Tortorella wants. But we're going to talk about whether he's going to thrive or die. So, John, what do you think?
I mean, he thrives. I guess, right? I don't know. Like thrive and what this guy's going to be able to do on the ice, I think don't really go hand in hand as far as term and action. But as far as like, he seems like a Tortorella guy. I'd like to think that Chuck Fletcher would only bring in Tortorella type guys after hiring said Tortorella. So yeah, he thrives.
Matt Casey.
Like, can you imagine the conversation with Tortorella? Like, Chuck comes waltzing down the hallway, like, "Hey, Torts, I got a guy for you.
You're never gonna believe who I got.
You know him as Nick DeLaurier." And
Big Nick DeLaurier.
so, look, I think John's right. The ceiling is gonna be pretty limited on this guy, but I do think if you want a guy who people aren't going to mess with and people are going to look up to and is going to make, our quote unquote skill players in big air quotes there, play a little bit bigger and a little bit safer, he's a good guy to do it. And I think Torts will he will thrive under Torts. I will also say, I don't think Torts will have qualms one bit on benching him if other players are playing just as well as him and he's not needed on the fourth line. Like, I just don't see him as...
Could I introduce you to someone named Zach McKeon?
Yeah, Zach McKeon.
Zach
I
McKeon.
kind of want to see them just go helmets and gloves in the locker room and just be like, all right, man, let's do this. Who's the toughest? Who's the toughest guy?
Tortorella goes, all right, I've got one spot. Two of you. Here's some hockey stick. Breaks the stick. Connect me, clean this up when they're done.
and meanwhile, Lawton's in the corner whittling, going, I wish it was me.
Like, I'm gonna stab the loser.
Yeah, he's too busy zip tying the armadillos.
Oh boy, I don't think they would have brought in a guy like DeLaurier if they didn't think he would play well under Tortorella. Simple as that. So, by those means, I think he thrives.
Give management a lot of credit on this one here, Derek.
I mean, I don't know. Like, to what extent is he gonna, like, what do we mean by thrive for Nick DeLaurier? Like, hey, great, you didn't have as many penalty minutes this year. Like,
Still had more goals than Morgan Frost.
there you go. There it is.
All right. What's that bet? Who has more goals at the end of the year? Nick DeLaurier or
Nick
Morgan
DeLaurier's
Frost?
goal total or Morgan Frost in one season?
I think that's a discussion that we need to have with our buddies over at Flyers High and Wide.
Look, I will end on this though, that like I think DeLaurier does bring something, and McEwen brings it too. Are we harder to play against with him in there? Yeah, absolutely. Are we a good team still? No. No. You got to prove that. But are we harder to play against? Yeah. And so I don't want to diminish the fact that we've gone from Oscar Lindblom dropping his gloves and fighting to now like two just meat sticks coming in there on top of Lawton, on top of Ristolainen. You know, like you have some beef in the lineup now where at least you can give some guys some room.
Good point. Very good point.
Just picturing the old guy from Family Guy going, "Did somebody say meat sticks?"
Hey, Mr. You got some meat sticks in your basement? Papa like it.
We need to stop before this gets any worse.
Tortorella, I heard you got some meat sticks.
Jesus Christ. All right.
Can we get the mega kebab?
All right. So sticking with our normal show format here. Well, I'm going to fill in for Hoagie because I got a dad joke.
Oh, we don't need it.
Oh, nope. We're doing it. We're doing it.
Damn it.
All right.
Slam it.
Are you ready?
No.
What is the worst combination of two sicknesses?
I would say narcolepsy and diarrhea.
You got one of them. You got one of them. Anybody want to take a guess on the second?
I mean, when you have the diarrhea,
which one did I get
sneeze at the same time?
You got the diarrhea. The diarrhea is one of them.
Okay.
The other one would be Alzheimer's, because diarrhea and Alzheimer's, you're running, but you don't know where.
It's not really a dad joke. We've kind of strayed from dad jokes. Yeah,
that came directly from a book titled Dad Jokes.
Well, I have a bone to pick with that book.
So listen,
the curator of that.
Take it up with the author. I don't know who it is. Yeah, whoever put this, Dan
hippie cult leader,
Dan Gilden. It's copyrighted by Dan Gilden, so take it up with him. And take it up with Hoagie. Tell him he needs to be on the next episode.
All right.
Matt Casey, let everybody know where they're going to be able to find you.
Hey guys, I'm on Twitter at PodStreetCasey, CASEY on Twitter, PodStreetCasey.
Lovely. And John?
You can find this podcast on all your various podcast listening receptacles. Enjoy it.
Or don't.
Don't. Screw you.
I don't care.
Still listen. Still got the revenue.
Right. Like it, don't, whatever.
We don't care. We don't. You can find me on Twitter at PodStreetBob. John's on Twitter at PodStreetGove. The PodStreet Bullies are on Twitter at PodSDBullies. Our affiliates are on Twitter also. Flyers High and Wide over on Twitter at FlyersHW. 5 Minute Major Podcast on Twitter at 5 Min Major Pod. That is it for us, folks. It was a short episode. It was a fun one. Hopefully, Hoagie will be back next week so John has somebody to take his anger out on. And we'll see you then.
Isn't that the case? We've got 15 minutes of like Hoagie bashing that we're missing this week.
Yeah. We're about 15 minutes short of the hour mark here. So that's 15 minutes that John could have spent.
Should we just spend the next 15 minutes bashing Hoagie?
I feel like that's not fair.
All right.
He's got to defend himself.
Love you, buddy.
We'll do it off camera. But
Okay.
All right.
Well, bye now.
bye now.
Bye now.